As the dust settles on State of Play, a veritable sandstorm of Iraqian proportions has built around the gargantuan worm that is God of War Laufe, and the internet has erupted with disdain and disgust. However, followers of my channel might already have been suspicious of both Laufe and one of its alleged writers. For if you happen to catch my video Tech Bros Frontin, and so is she, from last year, I covered Alanah Pearce's departure from Santa Monica Studios and her seemingly incredulous claims of having written for both God of War Ragnarok and a forthcoming God of War project. Now, at the time, most people were assuming that Alanah was referencing a God of War themed cookbook, which may actually have been a fantastically placed MacGuffin, as it happily detracted from the actual fact that Alanah had been working for 4 years on writing God of War Laufe, and that title is now finally arriving with the inevitability of an unwanted season on PS5. Now, as I alluded to back then, between my own sources and comments made by Lord David, White Knight of Jaffyshire, I was well aware that a God of War title was deep in development at Santa Monica. However, even I hedged my own bets over the degree to which Alanah's influence reached across the development of said title at the time. I highlighted how Fair Games, through Santa Monica's publishing entanglements with Alanah Pearce and Haven Studios of all people, check out my Laura Fryer video for a deeper dive on Alanah Pearce, but with its overt ideological themes and Eat the Rich drive plus a timeline that matched, I suggested then that Fair Games may have actually been the AAA game to which Alanah had referred. There's actually a lot to that original story, so I do suggest you go back and check out my video from last year to get a broader picture of both why Alanah was such a toxic prospect at the time and how she almost let the cat out of the bag on Laufe 18 months ahead of its reveal. I'll leave a link in the comments. Anyway, despite all that, I had some fair idea of what was coming, particularly that there was a potential change of protagonist and it was not necessarily a mainline iteration but a tangential iteration of the franchise, which were the words I used at the time, and that in itself is perhaps the main issue of contention right out of the gate with Laufe, but I'll come to that a little bit later. Because the initial point of interest here, for me at least, is the sheer distance between Alanah Pearce departing Santa Monica and the title showing up here at State of Play. For context, my video covering her departure was in January of 2025, and she had already departed some time before that, so we're now well over a whole year and a half since Alanah left Santa Monica. In Alanah's original video, she offers that a combination of returning to Australia, Trump's re-election, and various other practical reasons led to her departure from the studio. However, now we're this far out, and with the nature of what we see in God of War Laufey's reveal, plus the undeniably problematic PR baggage that Alanah carries with her everywhere she goes, perhaps her departure was not entirely under the terms she'd alluded to. I mean, think about this for a minute. How often does a significant writer leave a project a whole year and a half before it ships? If her insinuations are to be believed, Alanah spent 4 years writing Laufe. If one weren't thoroughly experienced in Pearce's tendencies for hyperbole and outright fallacy, one might believe that she was, potentially, one of the lead writers of Laufe. Now, if you know anything of Alanah Pearce, and unless you're clinically insane, you might understand why launching any AAA title with Alanah Pearce heading up promotion as a writer is a marketing nightmare that no PR department would really want to handle with a 40-foot Jeff Keighley. She's had quite a meteoric rise from 2014 as a local freelance journalist in Oz who went viral on the receding backwash of Gamergate to toys and culture editor at IGN just over a year later, then hosted their primetime daily fix program by 2017 before staging walkouts over alleged harassment and jumping ship to Rooster Teeth in 2018. By 2020, Alanah is a writer on God of War at Santa Monica Studios. Really? I'm sure I don't need to go over why this is the most incredulous position for Alanah to find herself in, given her CV up to 2020, and yes, the echoes of DEI hire bellow from every corner of the web, but here we are in 2026 being presented a game written by a former indie blogger whose only claim to credence is having ratted out a bunch of severely unhinged teenagers to their moms at the height of Gamergate. Now, when I think of not only all my contemporaries and myself, but also every class of students I've delivered lectures and seminars to at games development courses over the years, every person I've ever interviewed for an internship or full-time position on a project, hard-working, aspiring people, young and old, who have dedicated themselves to a genuine passion, who have lived real lives for all the troubles and follies therein, who have made genuine sacrifices in the hope of one day writing, producing, programming, developing, rendering, voice acting, or whatever for a huge AAA franchise, and they'll not get a look in. It's all for folly, because instead they'll be overlooked and shunned even for all their talent, skills and passion in favour of a viral blogger who stirs the pot wherever she goes and rides the wave of contentious content that comes with it purely for her own benefit. She is a tourist and a grifter by their very definitions. There's a reason Domino's Pizza UK's corporate account posted hashtag no Kratos, no pepperoni, because 98% of games industry veterans work there now, thanks to tourists like Alanah Pearce. As soon as the footage of Laufey began, I knew exactly what I was looking at, and it should be no surprise that God of War Laufey is what it is. Complete with self-insert Aussie voiceover for a sword or ribbon or whatever the hell it is, and of course the inclusion of the classic all-time self-reporting tourist character, the Gelatinous Cube. You see, when people who have no attachment to a particular field, like, I don't know, games and gaming, when they want to get into said field, they tend to hit that Google search like a beast. I mean, our wannabe Kurt Cobain from Beethoven and Dinosaur being another great example. Check out my Law of Fire video for more on him. But anyway, back in the day, for those of us who had played through the Middle-earth roleplay and then the TSR Dungeons & Dragons sets from the Red Basic to the Gold Immortal set, yep, that's right, OG business. Once the 90s hit and Dungeons & Dragons started broadening its market scope along with the popularity of the cartoon series and whatnot, you found a lot of grifters and hangers-on cropping up, and the key way to identify them was their obsession with the Gelatinous Cube. You see, it was pretty much the first immediately identifiable but not necessarily perceptively obvious reference to say most of them would stumble across it when looking into Dungeons & Dragons literature of the time. They felt it wasn't as obvious as an elf or a halfling, yet they hadn't looked deep enough into it to know anything much more in the way of a deep cut. But still, it might lend credence to their pleas for attention. It became such a meme that even the Royal Post Office in the UK just last year issued a D&D stamp collection featuring the Gelatinous Cube. I pointed it out to the good lady driver, even given my immediate recollection of said meme, so right out the gate, Santa Monica are letting everyone know that this is a casual game for your average tourist, written by an ideologically captured team who have traded gameplay and heroic stories for uncanny valley graphics and the feels. Which brings me to the name. I mean, referring to Laufey as God of War Laufey was probably their biggest fail in presenting this. I mean, actually look at the logo and you'll see that Laufe is the key text, whilst God of War is all itty bitty at the top there. This clearly indicates that they are not confident in this as a mainline God of War title. However, naming it Laufe, a God of War story, may have been a bit just too close to Solo, a Star Wars story, and all the baggage that entails for the marketing team to manage. Nonetheless, they really should have gone for something in the latter ball court with this, at least to soften the blow a bit more, which really that logo is a blatant attempt at it, and I would argue it was also what actually triggered Alanah's exit from Santa Monica almost 2 years ago now. They needed time and distance from both her and the controversy she brings with her, to perhaps try to round this turd into something remotely marketable as a AAA offering, and I'm in no way suggesting that they have achieved that. I mean, many might accuse me of still being a Sony fanboy. Quite the opposite. I've been saying that they can't get out of their own way since PS3, and they've been on a progressive downward spiral ever since. And you know, this may be ground zero, their landing point right here. I used to work on first-party compliance for PlayStation platforms, right? And back then, I was sternly enforcing to the best of my ability the walled garden that people like Phil Spencer and Phil Harrison and so on were so keen to break down. Well done, boys. You broke that wall. And let tourists like Alanah Pearce in to take over your biggest first-party franchises. And now we have a middle-aged dead wicker mom casting DEI mauve magic from her Doctor Who Regeneration Sparkle hands, chasing her Timu off-colour Eevee Pokemon through a mixed mythology afterlife with a gelatinous cube. My god, it's like a blend of the most tourist takes of all of 80s and 90s pop culture, from TTRPGs to anime to Harryhausen and cult sci-fi TV, wrapped up in a pseudo-cinematic filmic presentation. You know what would have been better than this? Anything. But no, seriously, what would have been better than this would have been a damn Xena Warrior Princess game in the style of God of War with the visceral brutality of Wolverine. Yeah, now that would kick ass. But no, instead we get this. Yet another example, like Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who and so on. We have a skin suit. We have the cultural appropriation of a beloved franchise to be co-opted into a never-ending march of progressivism. I mean, for God's sake, could you not just call it Laufe? No. Why? Because they know this steaming pile of effluent is not going to sell under its own steam, so slap another franchise on it and try to bait the existing audience into it. Same old method. But I do want to address the middle-aged thing. As I say, a Xena game in the style of God of War would kick ass, and even more so, having Lucy Lawless in it would kick ass. And no, I don't mean young, de-aged Lucy Lawless, I mean today Lucy Lawless, because I don't know if you're aware, but she could still absolutely go these days, and like a fine wine, well, let's just say her bouquet is even more exquisite today than in the 90s. And this could actually go for any number of other lead female characters from any number of franchises. Did anyone catch Elektra in Deadpool and Wolverine? She still absolutely fits that role, outfit and character to a T. Furthermore, everyone keeps forgetting Sarah Connor, middle-aged mom. Ellen Ripley, middle-aged mom. Laurie Strode, hey, guess what? She became a middle-aged mom and still kicked Michael Myers' ass while looking hot doing so. So I really don't think it's the fact that Faye is a middle-aged mom. I don't even think it's the fact that she's the lead in this game. It's really down to the fact that they called it God of War. That's it. And unfortunately, that's something they absolutely cannot take back now. Just as the same as they're trying to rebrand Fair Games right now. The fact that Alanah Pearce has anything to do with this is just further fuel on an already raging fire over at PlayStation right now. I mean, holy crap. Bungie spiraling, Destiny dying so that Marathon can die, Concord, Fair Games, the list, my god, the list is just going on and on and on. I think this could be it, guys. Like I say, ground zero for this slow motion industry crash, fueled by tourists, ideologues, narcissists, sycophants, and vast sums of shady foreign money. Summer Games Fest 2026 is where it all finally comes crashing down. Not in a thundering storm, but in a carefully controlled, faint, effeminate whisper. God of War Laufe, we knew ye not, because you suck. Bye-bye now.